From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. A production of iHeartRadio.
Hello, welcome back to the show. My name is Matt.
My name is Noel.
They call me Ben. We are joined, as always, with our super producer, Dylan, the Tennessee pal, Fagan. Most importantly, you are you. You are here. That makes this the stuff they don't want you to know. No.
Yes.
Yes. It is true. The rumors have been confirmed. This is our weekly strange news program. If you're listening to it the evening it comes out, welcome to Monday, October 28th. We have so much to get to. We're probably not going to get to all of it, but that's just a beautiful problem to have. Boeing is blowing up. North Korea is up to hijinks. We got some bank stories. We got some counterfeit whale sharks. We got all kinds of stuff for you. But the first thing we have to talk about, we don't want to sound like dicks here. Another Russian oligarch was found dead in Moscow quite recently. Do you guys know?
Say it ain't so, Ben. Say it ain't so.
Do you guys know how he died?
Was he thrown out a window?
It's the word of the day.
Cheesy.
I thought you were going to say what is it?
Defenestration. I literally just guessed, Ben. I assume that's what you were pointing to, signposting a little bit.
Yeah.
But is it really true?
Yes. Yeah.
How are they this unoriginal is my first question.
Well, if you got something that works, it works, right?
Doesn't that seem a little dicey though? Like you could survive a fall out of a window if it was. I mean, how high are we talking? Are we talking like skyscraper window?
Yeah, and also it appears that what a terrible run of luck this guy had. When Mikhail Rogachev, who was 64, fell out of the window, the back of his head hit a bullet as well. So,
no, it didn't.
No, it didn't. I'm making that
okay.
But
right
for a second, you guys,
right time, wrong time, right place. I don't know. It's something.
Mm-hmm. But you did nail it there, Noel. Yes, unfortunately, he fell out of a window. The reason that we said the word of the day was cheesy for a second there is unrelated, much more positive experience had at a Chick-fil-A yesterday where I accidentally said the secret word, which was cheesy, and they gave us mac and cheese. We had a really robust Chick-fil-A conversation before we rolled today.
Question. Did you just say it in the course of normal conversation whilst waiting in line?
No, I was at the counter. I was just making conversation with
I guess I got to know how you naturally arrived at saying the word cheesy, Ben.
Ben said, how cheesy is this mac and cheese? That was his intention, but he only got the cheesy.
They're like very.
And the lady said,
you, sir!
Shut up, you absolute Adonis of bad jokes. Give this man cheese. Well, still, we are encountering some levity, but to the point, folks, if you have followed our show at all, you know that the defenestration in Russia is at this point beyond a problem. Like it's a meme, isn't it?
Yep.
Not since the famed defenestration of Prague have we had this level of window throwing epidemic.
Yeah. We do realize a man has died. And
yes.
That stinks.
Yeah.
It's just.
You can't not have a little gallows humor around this pattern. It's just, again, I come back to like, is there not another way? Is there not a better way? Whose idea is this? Is this one particular hit squad that this is just their like signature move? What are we talking here?
It's other intelligence agencies do it as well, or criminal organizations, because it's simple and it's relatively foolproof.
You could also blame it on the individual doing it to themselves.
Right. And it's just much more reliable than, say, having to obtain polonium, but you can still, it still does signal something.
Or a bullet to the back of the head.
Right. You're supposed to know that you're supposed to know who did it.
There's no trail. What I mean? Wait a minute. What do you mean by that? Like it is meant to send a signal, and yet there is plausible deniability as well.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Exactly. Okay. And while we're talking Russia, why don't we consider this our cold open, and we'll finally get to the holy war.
Yeah.
And we're back. I've been overusing the phrase holy war, you guys. It's got such gravitas. but I need to stop calling every disagreement I have with someone a holy war.
I also think the term outrage has been largely overused in the press.
Oh, yeah.
There's a podcast I listen to called Weird AF News, and the dude that hosts it pointed this out, and I couldn't help but completely agree. Like, it is I've got outrage over the use of the term outrage.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, it's kind of like all the political hit pieces where they use these crazy verbs like so-and-so slams or blah, blah, blah. What's another one?
Well, but I guess the problem with outrage is usually used around relatively innocuous things. Like people are outraged over the overuse of condiments, like.
Yeah. People are outraged by ticket prices or by celebrity ephemera. This holy war is a very different thing. That it is a direct quote from the nation of North Korea, because they say that they are launching a holy war against South Korea. They've, as of this month, they have mobilized, or they claim to have mobilized 1.4 million citizens, mostly young people, and also pulling folks back into serving in the military. And they're calling South Korea a nation of confrontational maniacs and criminals. They've also destroyed roads connecting the two Koreas, which is not a great idea if you're trying to invade, because then you're just going to have to use the tunnels. And the tunnels kind of suck for anybody who's been in them. And I think it's strange that we're seeing so much news about North Korea now, because you guys saw also this is occurring in step with North Korean forces being loaned out to the Russian army, right? We all saw that.
Yep. It's a weird feeling. It's a really weird feeling. Ben, I can't even tell you how little I knew about North Korea until the first time you brought it up and we had a long conversation about the DPRK and just the weirdness with their relations to other countries and the tensions that kind of ebb and flow in some weird little political machine that never really does anything.
Right.
In my mind, you tell me if I'm wrong here, but in my mind, this is the first time I've seen North Korea stepping out for some kind of hot conflict.
Yeah, I mean, there's the Korean War, but
but I guess since the Korean War, in my mind, like, when have they left and mobilized troops to go, enter another country?
Yeah, exceedingly rare, and that's a good point, because usually their foreign activities away from their home soil are going to be espionage and criminal attempts. You know what I mean? Like moving those counterfeit super notes. And we shouldn't even call those counterfeit because they are higher quality than the actual US $100 bill.
We just call them super.
We just call them the soups. Yeah, this is strange. And I posit to all of us listening that the heightened tensions between DPRK and South Korea are somehow part of the ever cozier relationship between Russia and North Korea. There's a game going on, and you can kind of suss out what's happening by contextualizing the headlines. But we know that the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, recently said, look, Russia is going to be getting 10,000 North Korean soldiers to join the war. The U.S. has confirmed that this intel looks legit. South Korea's spy agency has said 1,500 troops have already arrived in Russia. Could be more like 12,000 when it's all said and done. So it sounds like they made a deal. And part of that deal was giving the cold shoulder again to their southern neighbors, South Korea. Plus, heavy U.S. presence in South Korea. So it makes sense. But my question here is, how often does this kind of thing happen? Should these guys be considered mercenaries for the purpose of Geneva, or should they be considered soldiers?
I don't know. When was the last time that the Geneva Convention was properly enforced? I don't know. I hate to be eye rolly about that, but it's almost like a moot point.
It's a good question. No, I worry that I get caught up in my own little mental gymnastics when it comes to that kind of thing. Maybe these guys aren't, officially doing this kind of thing, and maybe it's not like that. But in the end, it's the same way I feel about the United States and Ukraine and all the conflict going on over there. Like, what are the lines really when it's official government money from any government that ends up being the thing that gets human beings to, a fighting place? Ultimately, it's the country. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, it's a tough one. And this is one of those things where it's a conversational grenade we're sort of tossing your way, folks. We want you to tell us what's going on, especially if you have experience in Russia or in the Koreas, and tell us if there is indeed a great game afoot. But with moving on, because we're doing some rapid fire things, we'll give you some good news. Well, depends on how you feel. ICP, that's one for the Juggalos. They have officially endorsed.
That'd be the Insane Clown Posse.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Yes. Put some respect on their name. They have officially given the Juggalo endorsement to a political candidate. That candidate is Harris. So This has probably ruffled a lot of feathers. We'll stay tuned. That's our Juggalo update. I don't know if we have a sound cue for that, Dylan.
Magnus.
Oh, perfect. Great.
I sent around that video of Violent J on the Daily Show reacting to I was all the candidates in like face paint, Juggalo face paint.
Oh yeah.
And the reaction he had to Walls was Walls is how you say it?
Walls. He said, didn't he say who is? I don't know.
He said, "I am completely opinionless."
Yeah, he said, I have absolutely zero opinion on that man.
Well, I guess that's changed. Yeah,
it's an observation. So.
I mean, the man likes fried food, so I would think that would get the Juggalo seal of approval on its own.
Well, why has neither party gotten out in front of this? Where is the accountability? Where's their Fago platform? These are the real questions, right? And Harris and Trump both refuse to answer to the issues.
Is Michigan a swing state?
Yeah, baby.
It is? Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so... Well, obviously, I mean, Detroit is where the Insane Clown Posse hails from. I don't know the political makeup of Detroit. I feel like maybe because of the auto industry, it's a lot of blue collar folks who maybe are more on the Republican side. I really don't know. I'm trying to think about this as an actual swayer of votes. I wonder. That would be really interesting if it had the ICP effect. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and it's two guys. So Violent J and Shaggy
Too Dope.
Shaggy Too Dope may be at loggerheads. They don't always move in step just because they work together. We'll have to.
But this is they are presenting a unified front here, though, right? This is the Juggalos, or this is the Insane Clown Posse.
50% of the Insane Clown Posse is the best way to.
Only Violent J has. Okay, this is not a unilateral endorsement from the entirety of ICP.
We haven't heard from Jay. We haven't heard from John.
Where is Violent J in all of this?
So let us know your opinions on these pressing political matters. Let us know.
I don't think Ja Rule has weighed in either.
He hasn't weighed in on much since Firefest.
Yeah. So update us with that. And also let us know your favorite weird celebrity opinions. Because I love it when someone quotes a celebrity for no reason. They just happen to be accessible to the news. It happens all the time in Atlanta. And this is no disrespect to the various musicians we've seen interviewed about things. But they'll say, oh, okay, and here's blah, 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 blah. This is a very complex geopolitical issue. And we ran into T.I. in the
entertainer.
Yes, entertainer. Very smart dude also, by the way. But with one more piece before we go to ad break, this is something we should maybe describe as we called it. And unfortunately, when we make some of these predictions, they're usually about terrible things. And this is where we get to the story of Abercrombie and Fitch.
Oof.
Yeah.
Oh man. I don't think we are the only ones who call it. I think those ad campaigns called it, bro. I mean, dude.
Well, that's the thing. And when we even thought about it and started thinking about this thing, people have been writing about this dude and telling tales about this guy.
Yeah.
The stuff about the flights. Remember the flights?
The flight. You have to have no problem. The uniform. It was always uber creepy. But now the FBI has cracked down on Mike Jeffries, the former CEO, his partner, Matt Smith, and a third guy named Jim Jacobson. They have been accused of operating an international sex trafficking ring.
Naughty.
Yeah. And further through coercion, through getting, dangling the promise of becoming a model or a celebrity of some sort, and then making folks sign up for these getaways in places around the world, and then not allowing them to leave, forcing certain drugs on them, like poppers and poppers, Viagra, or something else too, then pushing them into sexual acts. So this was assault, and it's just way worse than I think we had assumed, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know it had that level of structure to it.
Yep.
Dumb question, maybe. Is Abercrombie and Fitch still a brand? Do they still have like brick and mortar stores?
Yeah.
It's still, okay. It's still very much a thing.
I was in one at the Mall of Georgia not that long ago.
And Jeffries is, again, former CEO.
Okay. Unconnected.
And
those stores, by the way, smell exactly as you remember them.
They
smells exactly the same.
they have, I would hope, toned down the borderline pornographic kind of homoerotic nature of the ads.
Oh, I don't know about that. This was Abercrombie Kids.
Ben, okay, fair enough. Ben, are you saying they have not?
I mean, look.
Because it used to be bad. It was like very scantily clad boys in like kind of homoerotic type situations. I'm having a hard time figuring out how to say this, but, you know, the ad campaigns, it wasn't the homoeroticness of it that was off. It was the like age presentation of these models. It felt a little on the young side. And the types of cavorting that were portrayed did not feel like it was taking place from consenting adults. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, over-sexualization of young men. It's the same reason I also get the skitters around the ideas of child pageantry. You know?
Don't care for it one bit.
Yeah.
Don't love it.
It's muddled in my mind, guys, because I think I was of the age of most of the models, at least that I remember, in some of these Abercrombie
spreads,
things,
whatever,
right? So in a way, it was like, oh, it's, you know, they want me to look like this or that kind of thing. And I most certainly did not. But I did like their khakis back in the day.
The pre-distressed khakis. Wasn't that their whole thing? Pre-distressed stuff? That was kind of their thing. I think it was.
Well, this is a story that has much more reporting. It's old beans, as a matter of fact. By the time that you hear strange news, it's been widely reported. We hope that the victims or the survivors are.
Did we do an episode on this guy, Ben?
No, but we called him out a while back.
I swear it was part of a larger conversation, like in an episode. I maybe just Google it, but I know that we had a pretty in-depth conversation about the flights and about like the concierge kind of and sexual acts taking place on these flights. I don't know. It was just.
You're absolutely right. We have talked about it before, and we're probably going to learn more about it with you, fellow conspiracy realist.
Ben, you talked about it in January.
Oh, on Strange News?
Yeah. And but just, oh my gosh, it's been that long.
Yeah. But unfortunately, we called it. Maybe one evening we'll be able to predict something positive that comes to pass.
Surely we have, right? We have to.
We don't have the best track record with positive stuff, but
fair.
We do have a good track record with ad breaks. Don't believe us? Check this out.
And we have returned with a couple of minor pieces of strange news. The first one I think is interesting, and it actually kind of encompasses two stories. So maybe I'm actually bringing you three. This is the case of a counterfeit whale shark, as Ben teased in the beginning of the episode. After 5 years of construction and renovation, a sea park, it's a sea world. I guess it's referred to in the UK as Sea Park, but Shenanigans, forgive me, not a native Chinese speaker, Shenanigans Zhao Maisha SeaWorld opened to the public recently with an ad campaign surrounding a very special creature being highlighted, a whale shark. And now here in Atlanta, you know, we're very lucky to have not one, but two actual whale sharks in the Atlanta Aquarium, which is, you know, kind of a world-class aquarium. We do know, and I think we've mentioned on the show before, that the story behind these whale sharks is one of rescue. They were not trafficked. They were not purchased. They were rescued from these tanks under a roller coaster in some kind of abandoned amusement park, I want to say in Mexico. Is that what you guys remember as well?
Yeah.
Cool. So we've seen them, and they're beautiful creatures. They're very, very large. They are migratory mammals. They are incredibly intelligent, and they are not particularly conducive as a species to being held in captivity because of that migratory nature. Because of that, and also because of the pretty brutal shark poaching that takes place in China and other parts of the world, the importing or the trade of whale sharks is outlawed. They are protected. And that is why, apparently, this SeaWorld couldn't get one, and instead presented a robotic whale shark, which, while pretty cool, was not exactly what was advertised. We'll get into sort of some of the PR behind it, but it led to visitors feeling completely baited and switched when they, walked in and were expecting to see this, sentient being. Instead, saw a 350 kilogram, very, very expensive facsimile of a whale shark swimming around.
Does it look like an actual whale shark?
Yeah. It does, minus the seams and, robotic accoutrement that are hard to cover up.
Really?
It's impressive. Think of the shark in Jaws, if you really saw it and you saw every aspect of it, and not just for a few minutes. It's there. You can't ignore it. It has propulsive technology. It is able to swim at relatively high speeds and maneuver. It cost millions of Chinese yuan in order to build this thing and to construct this thing. However, there seems to have been a bit of a disconnect between, what this thing was, what it maybe was for, and how the exhibit was advertised. Representatives from the SeaWorld or from the aquarium have said that they only decided to go with the robotic whale shark because, again, of the ban of the laws surrounding the actual whale sharks, because they're listed as an endangered species due to, again, climate change, things like illegal fishing, use of their meat. I mentioned the shark fin soup phenomenon, in this part of the world. It's quite horrible. It could really cause overfishing of all kinds of sharks. So they say they decided instead to go with this robotic version. And twofold, they also were hoping that it would create a conversation around conservation and around this type of overfishing issues that I'm describing. The problem is, I think, with the way they went about it, because a lot of people felt like, as this article that I found in phys.org, phys.org, really great article, The Case of a Robot Shark in a Marine Park Raises Questions About Animal Welfare by Elliot Dumbos. They felt catfished is the term that was used, which I guess is a bit of a Sea Parks pun.
You know what it reminds me of? Do you guys remember the story of the fake pandas?
That's the second one that I was going to bring up in this very context. This is the second case of counterfeit animals on display in Chinese wildlife exhibits. They were chow dogs, chows, that had their faces dyed black, and they were painted in different ways. Yeah. And they were passed off as being pandas.
I remember hearing about that one.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. And, they got in big trouble for that.
On a side note, you can check out videos of the panda dogs, and they're just great. They're cool. But I see your point, Noel. It's really about how it's, in the case of the Robo Shark and the pandas, it's about how you present things to the consumers. Right?
Oh my gosh, dude. Ben, I'm looking at the thing you just sent us to. Those are clearly dogs.
Oh, yeah. No, it's bad. Yeah, it's bad. And I don't see a video of this shark situation that's been posted yet, but I have seen images, and you do kind of get a sense of the sort of joints where the pivots, of the fins and all of that take place. And I did want to end this one by reading a quote from Elliot Dumbos, who wrote the piece for phys.org. He, at the end of his article, said, "Overall, the introduction of a robot whale shark into an aquarium, although controversial, can help engage wider audiences in conservation issues. Although misrepresenting a robot as a living whale shark is arguably unethical, anything which helps to create a space for public discussion on endangered species and animal welfare should be seen as a positive for overarching issues of species justice." So I'm with him on that. And I'm with them if they did this as sort of a protesty kind of piece of performance art or something, but that just doesn't seem like the way they marketed it. And I imagine they'll be pivoting that marketing campaign moving forward after all the controversy. But maybe the controversy was the point.
I mean, that's a good thing to say after you get caught.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, this was my plan all along. And we knew, and now we've all learned a valuable lesson about both robotics and conservation.
It's the friends we made along the way.
Right.
It's true. Last thing, countries like Indonesia, Mozambique, and India also ban the fishing and trade of the particular species we're talking here, which is considered a megafauna. I love that term. Yeah. It's a fun term. Migratory megafauna. The species is called Rhinocodon typus. And they are the world's largest fish species with a maximum recorded size of 18 meters in length. If you do make it down to Atlanta, you can see some real ones. They are there in the Atlanta Aquarium. I think I've got just enough time to just mention this one, and maybe this is part of a larger discussion. On AI and the media, I'll just read the headline from Vanessa Guerra over at the AP. Polish radio station replaces journalists with AI presenters. A Polish publicly funded radio station called Off Radio Krakow relaunched this week after laying off its entire staff. Ooh. And have pivoted to being what was a press release referred to as the first experiment in Poland in which journalists are virtual characters created by AI. There are 3 avatars, I guess, that have been created that have their own kind of personalities and views and topic areas. But the idea is to appeal to Gen Z listeners, potential Gen Z listeners, by having these avatars speak to cultural, art, and social issues as well as LGBTQ plus issues. The head of the station, Marcin Pulit, said, "Is artificial intelligence more of an opportunity or a threat to radio, media, and journalism?" Threat. We will seek answers to this question. How noble of them there at Off Radio Krakow, guys. And just to give an alternate perspective from an actual facts journalist, a guy by the name of Majtuz Demski, who is a journalist and film critic who was laid off from the station, published an open letter protesting the choice, referring to it as the replacement of employees with artificial intelligence, and saying that it is a dangerous precedent that hits us all and could lead to a world in which experienced employees associated with the media sector for years and people employed in creative industries will be replaced by machines. Not cool.
You guys can still tell that I'm human, right?
I think so. Unless the algorithm's just gotten good.
You guys both seem very human to me, so I'm just gonna assume we're all still human here. Okay.
Well,
not that there's anything wrong with not being human.
No, totally.
Hashtag not all humans.
I'm what they call more human than human, to quote Rob Zombie. But yeah, I don't know. Like they're framing it as this noble experiment, which I think is disingenuous and bullshit. They argue that the listenership of the pre-existing situation at the radio station was, quote, close to zero.
Yeah, I saw that.
And that may well be the case. And if that's the case, okay, I guess it is within their right to pivot, but it's a weird look. And I guess I'd rather see something like this attempted in a situation like this, but it's also the kind of thing you could say and then just do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah, we need to know more about the production pipeline, right? Like, are these AI entities simply leveraging audio to repeat something that has been written for them, or are they conducting, their own attempts to write like that terrible stuff ChatGPT
so bad
tries to do? I mean, also we have, in full disclosure, folks, because of the nature of our vocation, we learned a lot of the details about this kind of technology, I think, a little bit earlier than some of the general public, just because we lived in that world or lived closer to it. And a lot of the AI editing and a lot of the attempts to make AI entities or personas still fall pretty far short. Like when you listen to a show that has just been edited with AI, even if the speakers are human, you can tell.
Yeah.
You can
needs
really
a human
tell.
touch to smooth out those rough cuts, literally, those rough edits. all of the AI art, like I have seen AI art that I find interesting. I would not say I've seen anything that like moves me or I find compelling, because let's be real, y'all, the thing that makes art moving is the human aspect of it. The thing that makes good journalism is the human eye and the human observation and the empathy that can only come from being an actual human observing the behavior of other humans. I don't think that's a controversial position.
I don't think so. There's also, I also don't see current large language models, or you guys know I don't even like the phrase artificial intelligence. I don't see them as I don't see them as the end result here. So you can't really this is the predecessor to something that may be capable of amazing things in the future. But right now, if this kind of practice spreads as the current technology stands, we're going to run into the double mirror situation, which is already happening with any AI on a search engine. It's just, when I say double mirror, I mean two mirrors eternally reflecting back nothing but emptiness. They're going to quote each other in a Ouroboros.
Well, it's just like the visual metaphor for like an echo chamber.
Right. And it'll get less and less robust, informative,
copy of a copy of a copy of a copy.
Yes, just like Multiplicity, starring Michael Keaton.
Let's really quickly think about the radio company's stance here, just to get our minds into it, right?
Sure.
So these aren't crazy high-paid radio hosts, I'm assuming.
They're not.
Because this is
public radio in Poland. Yes.
I can imagine a company that has, that is paying out somebody like a Rush Limbaugh, or, somebody who is really well known. You're paying millions of US dollars per year for that type of talent, right?
Yes.
If you could create an AI generated version of that kind of character and make it popular, you would be saving tens of millions of dollars a year. That is not the case going on here, but it is pretty creepy to think about the way this could be thought about in the future.
It's going to happen. If you are in a public facing entertainment or education field, be very careful what you sign, because we are at the place where you could resurrect a Rush Limbaugh just based on the huge collection of data of him speaking.
We already have individuals like that selling the rights to their image.
Right.
Is it really that big of a leap for them? I mean, and this is these are the folks that have gotten ahead of it, where they're like, sure, I'll sell you my entire virtual likeness, including my personality, for a gajillion dollars, and then I can retire and I never have to talk on mic again. That precedent will be set. That will happen. And it'll be somebody like what you're talking about. Then they can just go on forever. It's eternal Howard Stern.
There are people right now as well this evening who are not public figures, but would gladly sell away their rights for a surprisingly small amount of money, maybe even for a free small mac and cheese at Chick-fil-A. Again, the word of the day is cheesy.
For the privilege of using an app, bro.
Yeah, for an app, right, because you are the product. I think this is something that we are going to continually return to. I also have always found Polish to be an incredibly tricky language.
They say it's one of the most difficult to learn for an English speaker.
Yeah. And all my friends who speak Polish, it's kind of like people who speak Finnish. You ask them, how do you say something in Polish? And they just like roll their eyes and say, let's just stick with English.
JoJo Siwa was recently clowned, as she typically is on the internet, for attempting to sing one of her songs in Polish. And Polish posters were like, I have no idea what the hell she was saying.
Right.
Aww.
Yeah.
Oh, Matt, you're in JoJo's corner. I know. I do feel bad. She tries real hard, bro. She tries too hard, dare we say.
I don't know who she is. And when you guys talk
she was the girl with the big bows. They sell her bows at Walmart. She was like a little like ponytail, teeny bopper type, pop princess. And now she's trying to be a bad girl. She's sort of rebranded.
Look, in my head, this is somebody who's been in the spotlight since they were a tiny
she's
person.
Wrecked, bro. She's wrecked. Yes.
And she's still learning who she is and what the world is, and she's just doing it in front of everybody, and that is an awful position to be in.
And I'm not trying to punk her too hard. I just mentioned the Polish thing because it is. That's where I learned this fact that Polish is apparently incredibly difficult.
Also, I wish JoJo the best. I don't have a stance really on.
That's okay.
I think people worship celebrities in a way that is just disappointing and gross, but But, it's tough to make it in the world of music. So I, absolutely wish everybody the best, every musician who's not a jerk.
Oh, 100%. And I do wish JoJo the best. And I hope she does. Matt, that was the very empathetic way of putting it. And that is unrelated to the story, but I think an interesting side conversation just the same. So guys, I think we ran a little long with these two. Maybe we're a little more robust than I realized, but let's take a quick break, hear a word from our sponsor, and then come back to you with another piece of strange news.
And we've returned. Guys, we're going to get into some fiscal responsibility right now. How's that make you feel?
I'm a fiscosexual. Let's do it.
Let's get physical.
Physical.
I want to get physical.
All right. We've got some news for you. We have talked about many a whoopsie that banks have done in the past, or I guess more of a whoopsie, you caught us.
Yeah. Check out Jeffrey Asmus' great piece on Wells Fargo.
Oh,
I'll send it to you guys. Yeah.
On all of them. Basically, all the banks that we've ever talked about on this show, and it's most of them. Every once in a while, you get caught doing something you're not supposed to be doing, and you got to either pay a little money. Usually, you don't have to say we did anything, like as a bank. You don't have to admit guilt. You just have to pay a nice little fine and then continue making billions and billions of dollars.
Oh, cheese and crackers, you guys. We didn't know that was illegal.
I didn't know I couldn't do that, officer.
Golly gee willikers, we were just trying to bank. Is that so wrong?
Yeah. Well, that's it. That's all they were trying to do is make bank. Well, here's some news out of the BBC. It's actually coming out of the Justice Department and a bunch of other places, but we're going to be reading from some stuff Natalie Sherman wrote on BBC on October 10th. The article Natalie wrote is titled TD Bank. Maybe you've heard of them. TD Bank fined $3 billion US in historic money laundering settlement. Historic. That's why we're talking about this, because otherwise it would just
that seems borderline meaningful even for a bank, right? Wouldn't you say, or no?
Almost. It's so close to verging on. It's edging on meaningful. Let's
gooning on meaningful.
That's true. They're TD Bank, as we're about to find out, has been gooning in one particular way for a long time. So TD Bank, it's one of Canada's largest lenders, according to Natalie, and just by the facts. They have agreed to pay more than $3 billion. And this is the historic part. $3 billion is historic. But the other thing that's historic is that they're pleading guilty to criminal charges, including conspiracy, guys, like actual facts conspiracy. And the stuff they're pleading guilty to. Actually, let's go and jump to the Justice Department, like precisely so we get this right.
Yeah.
The Justice Department says TD Bank NA is pleading guilty to conspiring to fail to maintain an anti-money laundering program that complies with the Bank Secrecy Act. So they are conspiring to fail. Isn't that interesting?
Yes.
They're they're quietly sabotaging.
Yes. Okay. They're also conspiring to fail to file accurate currency transaction reports.
Okay.
And the big one, conspiring to launder money. But again, everybody's doing that.
Right.
But this is really interesting. I think that concept of conspiring to fail to do something, it's striking to me because it really is people somewhere at the top who are building the system, the structure of how the bank functions, getting together and saying, I think we got to just not look so hard at some of this stuff.
Yeah, they bought themselves a larger window of time. Right?
Yes.
Because every day that they can avoid the internal regulatory process is another day that they can wash the money.
Yes. Another day for an entire decade.
Matt, Merrick Garland, the attorney general who prosecuted the case, said that they basically made their services convenient for criminals and in doing so became one themselves. Can you give us a little bit of a sense of how what they did was more egregious or different than what other banks are and were doing?
They conspired to basically just allow massive transactions to occur when they shouldn't be occurring without being immediately reported to authorities.
Okay.
There was one customer who used TD Bank to launder more than $470 million in drug proceeds, making large cash deposits and bribed staff with gift cards. There was one person that was found. I'm going to have to find it in here. They were making daily $1 million transactions, just like in and out and in and out and in and out. And it was an individual.
And they weren't reporting this to whom? Is it supposed to be like the IRS? Like, I think it's $5,000. That anything above that, you're supposed to, under
10,000.
10,000. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's U.S. law. So just like here in the U.S., Canadian financial institutes like this are required to report these larger suspicious transactions. It reminds me of when HSBC literally built different windows at their physical locations so they could help launder drug money faster.
Yeah. It was basically just saying we're going to allow all this stuff just to happen. And then as organized criminals who are very organized and making lots of money, as they realized, oh, guys, we can just put this in TD Bank and we're good to go. And then we can just take it back out of TD Bank and it's no longer drug money. It's TD Bank money, which is crazy to think about. But there were other things happening where TD Bank was allowing funds to go directly back to people who were producing fentanyl, which is one of the really crazy things that the investigation found. So people were, again, they weren't following the money. They weren't reporting on any of the transactions. And here it is. Prosecutors said it operated with inadequate guards against money laundering for nearly a decade, failing to act even when staff flagged obvious cases that there were people abusing the bank and doing this kind of illicit trading of money and exchanges and financial transactions. And the bank is like, nah, we're good. It is the biggest fine ever under the anti-money laundering law. And, here's the thing. The chief executive at TD Bank said, we take full responsibility for failing to do this. Here's $3 billion. They're only paying the Justice Department $1.8 billion. They're also paying FinCEN. Remember FinCEN, guys? We talked about them.
Yeah.
That is the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network.
Oh, right.
They are getting $1.3 billion.
For their trouble.
I guess, well, I mean, to fund basically this massive investigation
that's
that
right.
all of these, there's so many humans involved in investigating this stuff. It'll, I guess, take care of their salaries as well as hopefully fund these types of investigations in the future.
My favorite thing in this article, Matt, you probably clocked it as well, the mention of TD Bank's slogan, America's most convenient bank, and the fact that employees basically was an in-joke that this was, in fact, marketed towards criminals.
Yep. Oh, this was the thing. This is when we were talking about fentanyl. This was the thing. It wasn't about money necessarily coming into the bank from the people who were producing the fentanyl. It was people who were buying the fentanyl. And then the money that they put into the bank, they could use the transactions there, I guess through online banking or something, to go directly back to the people who were producing the fentanyl in China and Mexico and other places.
Yeah, and messing with the international level brings a whole other layer of crime and skullduggery here. It still only confirms what we have said multiple times in previous explorations. When the punishment, the financial punishment for a crime is less than the total profit you make from the crime, then it simply becomes a business cost, right? Yeah. And I think there's another example of this, Matt, since this has reached, this criminal level. And since the bigwig said, we take full responsibility, whatever that means. What do you see as next steps here? Will the bank collapse? Will it continue?
It's going to continue. Bharat Masrani, who has run the bank for a long time, is stepping down. That's one of the main guys.
Someone has to fall on the sword.
Yeah. The bank is going to have a third party that's going to basically monitor everything it does for the next 3 years, according to the Justice Department.
Who's going to continue banking with these folks, though?
It's got 27 million or more than 27 million customers worldwide. It's a huge bank.
I guess we know that Wells Fargo, despite their shenanigans, they didn't lose a bunch of customers. Hell, I still bank with Wells Fargo, full disclosure. And I'm embarrassed to say that. And I'm very seriously rethinking that. But it's so inconvenient to change banks that I think a lot of this stuff just, of course they're crooked. They're the bank.
Yep.
I bank with an evil leprechaun. He lives out. Yeah, he lives out on the west side.
Well, at least you get a little taste of that pot of gold.
What kind of security is going on with this leprechaun?
It's massive. It's crazy. We get the Selkies, trees that you can't call ents. They get very offended.
They're close though.
Look, man, I don't want to get canceled in the Fae community. And
that's not up to you, Ben.
That's up to the Fae. Yes. And that's their prerogative. But I know it's a dumb example. I'm kind of punchy today, but the thing we have to remember with a lot of the system of finance overall is that it's easier for these folks to get away with crimes than it is for an individual to get away with crimes, because the regulatory bodies are often compromised. That's unfortunately just true. And money is a heck of an incentive for people to commit. The Justice Department saying conspiracy, this could be also described as crimes of negligence.
Well, and my initial reaction was awesome. The banks are finally getting taken to task. And this is a lot of money. And I asked Matt if it was meaningful. And you said it was just on the edge of meaningful and that the bank will continue. And I just don't understand how that's allowed to happen. But I guess that it's just capitalism, baby. You got a right to exist. Sure, you made some mistakes were made, but you've atoned. Mm-hmm. You've paid your ultimately paltry fine. What was the big number, Matt? It was trillions.
The big number was $18.3 trillion worth of transaction activity through the bank.
Unbelievable.
Right. Which means that some of that money could be counted twice because of how it's moving. But still, it is crazy, man. Also, there's the other side of this that we haven't talked about, which is for governments, they have to reasonably think when they're meting out penalties and punishment, they have to reasonably think about the possible larger economic consequences, right? Like if you drive the bank into oblivion, what happens to all those customers?
How much of our society runs on illicit drug trade? Seriously.
A lot.
That we just don't even know about. And it's just occurring and the money is changing hands. People are benefiting and then it moves all the way up through politics. Like, oh God, there's so many fictional stories about that, right? And then we get to see little glimpses through the glass with something like this.
Well, especially with all the limits that have been taken off political donations, and that's almost a way of laundering money in and of itself.
Oh my God.
It's a way of exercising, that soft power, I guess you call it, like over the course of business and events and regulations. I just can't believe how far we've allowed that to go. Yeah. Whatever your political leanings are, I don't think anyone's super stoked about this unlimited money, corporations or people mentality. I just think it's
Citizens
deadly.
United is such a grift. And even just reading the legalistic parkour that some of the smartest minds in the US had to bullshit their way through to try to make it sound like it was not an absolutely un-American, unhinged idea. It's disappointing, which is worse than being outraged, right? Dude. In this case, it's like the thing I do now if I'm in traffic. I don't get angry. I don't have the emotional depth for that kind of stuff. But I found what hurts people most is not giving them the finger. It's making eye contact, pointing at them, and giving them a thumbs down.
Ooh,
it's like
I wouldn't like that.
No.
That's what I do to Cybertrucks.
And saying, you're weird.
Man, you know what? My girlfriend yesterday pointed out that it ain't cool that weird's been co-opted in that way. I like weird. We have a sign hanging in our living room that says stay weird. And it just feels like it's been taken from us. I don't care.
All things pass. You know what I mean? All things pass. The weird was weaponized briefly for one election. And the time the next election comes around, they'll just have a different word.
Yes, they will.
They'll say he's sporky.
I was going to say he's cheesy.
Cheesy. Hey, full circle.
Free macaroni for everyone. Free macaroni.
But one last thing I just want to say, guys, I think this is what we need to do. This is my platform. I'm going to run for POTUS in the 4 years. No. Okay. Legalize all drugs as has been proposed before. Allow the current cartel forces that exist throughout the planet to become corporations.
All right. Yeah, go ahead.
And sell their products. Mm-hmm. Make sure there are taxes, like heavy taxes applied to all drugs that exist, that are all legal now, and remove all other forms of taxes. As we've found, human beings love some drugs.
Sure.
And they're going to consume them.
Right.
We only tax the drugs from now on.
That's a great idea. I don't think it'll work, not because of any ethical concerns, but because drugs are, I would argue, drugs are taxed, illicit drugs, through the bribery system. So they're paying tax to specific corrupt individuals, right? And that's a good argument we can make with the drug dealers, because we'll say, look, now you're still paying the same VIG. You're just paying it to a government.
Well, and you have more real enforceable protection as opposed to hoping that the bribes work out in your favor.
Oh,
True.
And speaking of bribes, I wanted to mention this. We didn't get to it, but you guys read about Elon Musk's plan to pay people $100 a pop in Arizona
I heard about that.
to vote. Story for another day, but that reminds me. Oh, Dylan's entering the chat. We touched the nerve. Dylan wants us to know that 1.8 billion is less than 1% of 18 trillion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you consider the scale of the actual crime, this isn't any more meaningful than any of the other wrist slap type fines that we've seen.
Well, let's just put this, that 18 trillion number isn't all, drug money and illicit funds. It's just all the money that is not being looked at.
Yeah. And some people smoke tobacco in bongs, I'm sure. Right?
Yeah, sometimes. It's called a hookah.
Yeah. That's what you say at the store. But do you guys remember that when you had to play that song and dance at the head shop? Oh,
water pipe?
A tobacco water pipe?
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
Oh, what webs we weave.
All right, narc.
What webs we weave. Cheesy stuff as we move through Halloween. Matt, do we have a takeaway on the bank here? I think we've outlined a lot of the problems, and the most damning thing being, of course, that the bank will continue.
There's no takeaway. Just,
Dine in only?
Yes.
Sure, that's it. Dine in only at your local Chick-fil-A.
Oh, gosh. What a weird adventure we've been on. Join us later in the week, folks. We will be returning with episodes. We'll have listener mail. We've got some very strange stuff on the way for you, which may not be appropriate for all listeners. You'll see what we're talking about. Just a heads up. In the meantime, give us your takes on this stuff. Tell us about the DPRK, North Korea, your favorite Robo Shark. We also had some really interesting conversations about the post office that I think we'll get to later. But for now, drop us a line. We try to be easy to find on the internet.
Yeah, that's right. You can find us at the handle Conspiracy Stuff, where we exist on YouTube, where you can peruse videos of our faces containing facsimiles of our voices, telling you stuff about things. You can also find us at that handle on X, FKA, Twitch, her, and on Facebook, where we have our Facebook group, Here's Where It Gets Crazy, on Instagram and TikTok. However, we are Conspiracy Stuff Show.
Do you like to call people? Call us. Our number is 1-833-STDWYTK. When you call in, give yourself a cool nickname, and guess what? That's really all you got to do. Please let us know if we can use it on the air or not. Your message, that is, and your voice, and all that stuff. Once you've done all that, say whatever you want. You got 3 minutes. If you got more to send us, maybe a link or two, maybe an attachment that has your kitty cat's face on it. Meow. Why not instead send us a good old-fashioned email? We are
the entities that read every piece of correspondence we receive, and we cannot wait to hear from you specifically. Send us your secret words, your arcane text. Tell us a story as we gather around the digital campfire. Take us to the edge of the rabbit hole. We'll do the rest, and we also want to give a thanks to everybody who's been writing in. Our email has been blowing up like a Boeing satellite, and we couldn't be more pleased with that. Be well aware, yet unafraid, sometimes the void writes back. We'll see you out there in the dark. Conspiracy at iHeartRadio.com.
Stuff They Don't Want You to Know is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.